Thank you very much, Natan, for joining us this evening. I'm very excited. Thank you for all those who are joining us to honor Rabbi Steinsaltz, in memory of Rabbi Steinsaltz, for his second Yartzheit. The discussion that I thought to have with you this evening, Natan, is about the Jews as the Jews. That means, I think in many ways, the Jewish people was something that was very, very close to the rabbi's heart. Rabbi Steinsaltz invested much of his life going around the world and talking to different Jews and writing about the Jewish people. And I think you, Natan, also, we can say that the Jewish people is one of those issues that are very close to your heart as well. And I would like to hear a little bit from you, first of all, maybe on a personal level, if you have any story that's connected to the rabbi and connected to the Jewish people. Please, Natan.
Well, I have some stories, but what I remember very well is how he was speaking about his family, about his father. And his father was a communist. And when his son started leaving that world and going, becoming religious, he said, "What you're doing? There is such an empire here, the communism. It's the whole world, and you go to some small shtetl." And he said, I didn't even argue with him, but I thought, well, I go to real empire, and there is the whole world. And that's how he felt. For him, I think, what was interesting about Rav Steinsaltz, when you're talking to him, there are no borders between science and art, Jewish world and universal world, physics and literature. He was moving through all these categories and all these borders, freely walking from one world to the other, understanding that they're all deeply connected. And in the center of the world that he was living in, and it was everything, in the center, the heart of it was Judaism and the Jewish people and what they give to the world. And he understood that in order to give, you have to learn. And you have to be very deep in your Judaism in order you really can help to all the world to be in the image of God. That's how I felt. In fact, all his stories were coming inevitably to this. On the other hand, on more narrow level, it's interesting. Once I was working in Jerusalem Report, it was just started, I think, 91. Everybody is young, beginning and so on. And I meet Rav Steinsaltz and explain him what I'm doing. He said, do you want, I'll give them some lessons in Judaism. I said, it will be great. And what will be the topic? I'll think about interesting topics. So I convened all the leadership of Jerusalem Port. They were mainly secular people. And he came and he started speaking about Lashon Hara. And it was a very interesting topic. But in fact, after the two lectures, they understood that they are living all in sin because the journalism is violating all the rules of Lashon Hara. So after 3 lectures, they told me quietly, I can't tell him that it's enough because we already hate our profession. But it's interesting. He thought what would be useful for them. But I asked him later, do you really think that they'll follow your, because what he explained to us, and it was also not new for me, that not only you should not say lies, but even if it is absolute truth, but there is no need to say it, or it can theoretically to harm anybody now and in the future, you're not supposed to say it. So it means that you have to abolish journalism. So I asked him, did you really expect they'll follow it? He said, no, of course not. But they'll at least think about importance of these principles. You know, that's how with all the Jews. Do you really think that people are fulfilling everything? But if they are thinking about it, it's and taking into account somehow it influences them, and then it influences the world.
You know, it was interesting that I studied as a student, a young student in the rabbi's yeshiva. Yeah. And at some point, I was lucky that I got to meet the rabbi in other different places around the world. And he, of course, with different people, not with students from the yeshiva, from all different backgrounds. And as a student, for me, it was very challenging going to the US and going out to meet people from the academic world. And it was always very, very simple for the rabbi. That means it was always the experience very similar to what you said before, Natan. It was always so familiar to him, and it was like one big family. You could be religious, you could be Zionist, you could be anti-Zionist, you could be a rightist, left. It's no question. You could even be Hungarian. The rabbi always would like making fun of Hungarian Jews. And still, when he would enter the hall, it was the same type of experience. These are my brothers. These are my very close friends, I would say. Now, I think that is connected to the way the rabbi thought of the Jewish people. Do you agree with me?
Yes, it's true. I think that he felt that if you take any part of Jewish people, you're losing something very important. That's why, yes, secular people are as important as religious, because first of all, nobody knows the future. And second, everybody has his or her role in Tikkun Olam. And there where secular people can influence with their Jewish wisdom, religion, Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox, whatever, everybody has his or her own auditory, has their own connections to the world. And we Jewish people need all of us to influence.
How do we...
After all, that's interpretation. I can't say that that's word by word what he said, but from many conversations, that's my feeling. Yeah.
I would love to hear your opinion as well, Natan.
Yeah.
How do you see the Jewish people nowadays? You've seen a lot throughout the past 50 years or so. Where are we at regarding our relationship as Jewish people in this challenging world?
Well, first of all, it so happened that half of Jewish people approximately lives in Israel and half lives in Galut, in diaspora. And for some time in the past, there was attempt of canceling one another. You know, our founding fathers believed that Galut will disappear. In fact, Yartzheit said that after there will be Israel, the Jews oblad assimilator will go to Israel. And our founding fathers thought more or less in that direction. Then there was a period when we were saving one another, meaning that Jews of diaspora were saving Israel, that it's our poor relative whom we will not permit. We will never permit that there'll be one more Holocaust, so we have to protect Israel, so we have to give money. So Zionism was turning type of financial support. And Israel, of course, felt, Israelis, that we are saving diaspora Jews. They have no future, so we are building home for them. And I think now we somehow are in the third stage, when both parts need the other for their own survival, or understanding their own place in the world. Jews of diaspora discovered, no, we didn't say them, they, the secular Jews, discovered that in order to make sure that their children will be Jewish or grandchildren will be Jewish, they have to bring their children to Israel. That's how birthrights was born. And all the Israel experience rules. They found out that when it comes to strengthening your identity, Israel is unique too. And of course, Israel gives a lot of feeling of responsibility for our future. Israelis are people who are making decisions about the future of Jewish people. On the other hand, Israelis maybe slowly but discover more and more that that in fact Israel belongs to all the Jews of the world, and in fact we can learn a lot from them also how to be minority, how to be responsible one for the other, and that's very Jewish experience, but the experience which is almost abandoned or forgotten by Israelis for good reasons and for bad reasons. So today what we have, what is really very important for our mutual survival is to learn how we're using experience of diaspora Jewry, or how we're using Israel for our daily life. And look, the world is torn today in pieces. Polarization goes different directions. People think that political is the strongest polarization, or religious is the strongest polarization. I believe that polarization is between those who believe in democracy and those who believe in nationalism. Those who believe in democracy, especially in Europe, you can see it, are really denying importance of identity. They think that identity brought us to religious wars and national wars, and we have to overcome it. On the other hand, as a counter attack this, there is one after another national parties, beginning from Le Pen in France, and then dozens others, who are saying we have to bring back our identity, and if it means to undermine democracy and human rights, that's most important. What is unique about Jewish people and about Israel, we are having it together. We got our freedom when we left Egypt, and we became people when we left Egypt. The first who calls us people in the Bible is Paro. There are other people. So, and we left Egypt, and we got message on Sinai. So, and since then, we are always fighting. You can look at every country, every community. We are fighting for our right to be Jews, to be ourselves, and we are fighting for freedom. And sometimes it seems like two different fights, but it's very closely connected. In fact, Israel today, with all this debate, Israel has to stay, and it stays. Otherwise, it will not be the center of Kibbutz Galuyot, gathering of exiles. It stays country and nation, which in a very unique way, we are part of the free world, which doesn't want identity, and we are Jewish state, we insist. And we are part of Middle East, which doesn't recognize democracy, and we insist that we are democracy. So we are keeping these two basic desires of people to belong and to be free. We are keeping them together. I believe that is our Or Goyim and philosophical meaning of the word.
It's very interesting what you say, Natan, because in many ways, I think that's connected to what the rabbi tried to do, is opening the gates also when it comes to the Jewish studies. That means I think part of democracy is coming and saying it's not only, also with knowledge, it belongs to everybody. It's not something that belongs only to the scholars. And if you are interested, you're more than invited to join us and be part of the debate. Do you see a connection between the two?
Yes, of course. Well, connection begins from the idea of Chevruta. I don't think there is any other religion or nation where it is so built in Chevruta. So you are supposed to argue. You cannot learn without arguing, without debating, without disagreeing. And then from this disagreement comes one big teaching. So that's very interesting principle. And yeah, well, Rav Steinsaltz, of course, was using this principle in a very powerful way. He could start Chevruta practically with everybody. It was very interesting. He could meet person by chance, and he'll start talking to him as if he's partner in Chevruta, and people become involved.
So if I understand what you were saying is that the identity of the Jewish people as Jews, part of that identity is connected to democracy, is connected to that freedom of having everybody invited to be part and to take an active position.
Yeah, it starts from free conversation, then from taking position, then from disagreeing with others until up to the end, and then there is Hidush comes. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's one other issue that I have been disturbed with that's connected to the question, if we look a little bit forward, what will be with the Jewish people? And if we want to think of the Jewish people as something that is not only connected to religion or to Zionism, if that is possible, I think the Rabbi many times thought of the Jewish people as something to itself with its own essence. And I'm sorry to say that many times it's connected to anti-Semitism or to our history from the past. Not that those things are not worthwhile dealing with, but is there any element that we can emphasize that can be a way to take the Jewishness, the Jewish people, to continue hoping that there won't be anti-Semitism, hoping that it won't be only the history of the past, but something of the future? What are those elements that we can, or do they exist?
Of course, they exist. When the Pope came for the first time to Israel, I was then the minister. It was like 1997, and he was speaking in the president's palace, and he said, I remember one phrase from his speech. He said, "Jews are the central boulevard of the world history," and well, I thought maybe he means Old Testament, and then no, and he said, no, from the ancient days to today, you are the central way of history, so civilization. So if he thinks this way, we should not forget about it, about our role and about our responsibility. But before speaking about it, I want to react on your comment about that Jews are more than religion and Zionism. As I say, I was in many communities in the world, and yeah, there is assimilation is challenging all of us. And, I would say even in Israel we have assimilation. Of course, not physical. We don't have 50, 60, 70% of mixed marriages, but assimilation from the meaning of the word Jew, from the meaning of Jewishness, yeah, well, replacing it by Israeli. That's one problem. But the biggest problem, of course, is the whole communities are disappearing as a result of assimilation, and many small communities move to the 2 or 3 big communities in the country, and these 2 or 3 communities are shrinking all the time. And of course, that is a challenge. People are dealing with this in different ways. My experience from being in dozens and dozens of countries, communities, practically difficult to think about community that I wasn't. My experience is there are only 2 balamim, 2 breaks, 2 factors which are slowing down or overcoming this process. That's tradition and Zionism. And traditional religion, but religion, it can be Orthodox or non-Orthodox, but the one for whom tradition is important, for whom it has meaning, the history has meaning. and the second is connection to Israel. If you have one of these, you can work on the other. You have both, you're guaranteed. If you don't have this or this, your grandchildren will not be Jewish. And that's law, experimental law, true for France, for America, for Moscow, from Mexico, from South Africa, for Australia, for every place. That's why if you say, if to take away Judaism in the broad meaning of it, and to take away Zionism, I don't think that there will be anything will be left to keep us as people. But it doesn't mean that we don't have what to give to the world, that we are living only inside. To the contrary, we have to be strong inside in order to give to the world. And we gave the idea of one God, the idea of B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God, all human rights, all the worldview on human rights, on all these committees which were created, declarations on human rights, struggle for human rights. It all comes from one source, from the idea that all the people are equal because they are created in the image of God. And so if you go to the very fundamental things which define today the life of the world, including in Shabbat, which we have so much arguments about it. But if you look, people don't realize that before we brought Shabbat to this world, people were working unstopped. And that Sundays, which some people still almost is the enemy of Shabbat, that's what we gave to the world. Everything what we gave to the world then is turning into different forms. And the opportunity not to work all the time, but also to have some time for the family. So, and as I spoke before, all this concept, all the people want to be free. You will not tell me what to do. That's what my 4-year-old daughter told me, but she was 4 years old. And I, at the beginning, I was angry at her, but I understood. First of all, that's what I was saying to KGB. But second, that's what every person says. I have my own ideas. I have my own thoughts. And something almost opposite. We want to belong to something bigger than only myself, whether it is people or faith or football team, but something that what is very important for your life. So it's almost opposite things: to instinct to be free and instinct to belong. And this, as I said, Jews who started from this, they brought these two desires together, and then the world continues with this. So, but as to anti-Semitism, I think people are absolutely wrong to think that anti-Semitism itself is saving us. And today, whenever I hear every terror act, immediately ministers start competing who will be the first to say, immediately come to Israel because there is not safe. If it's, and I never did it, not because I don't want them to come. I want every Jew to come, but I don't believe that by reminding them that they have safe shelter, that's what will bring them to Israel. Because you can have a safe shelter also in Miami and get bigger salary. So, and what I'm telling always, every anti-Semitic act can make somebody to think about making Aliyah, but many more about assimilation. So anti-Semitism can accelerate assimilation if you are not connected, if you're not connected to tradition or not connected to Israel, if you don't feel this deep need to be part of the family, then anti-Semitism will help you to make this decision to run away. Well, I was born and grew in the atmosphere where the parents were dreaming how to give some bribe to the registry office, that when our children at the age of 16 will go to get ID, they will write instead of Jew any other word. Why? Because there was nothing positive in this word. It was only you are born with this disease called Jew, so you have a lot of anti-Semitism, but there was no tradition, no language, no Brit Milah, no Bar Mitzvah. It didn't exist in our life. So in this situation, of course, anti-Semitism only encourages you how to run away from your people. Well, of course, we have to fight with anti-Semitism. That's what I'm doing for the last 40 years. But we should not build our hopes that anti-Semitism will save us Jews. It must be something very positive, desire to be one people, what will save us, the Jews.
Natan, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I want to do a l'chaim for you and in memory of our dear Rabbi. And with God's help, we all should have our proud identity of being Jewish. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.